Hey, Kev.
How's it going, Steffi?
Great. How are you?
It's a beautiful day. No complaints on my end.
I know you look fresh out of the shower.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Little, little
you and
cross.
Kristen, little K dog, just getting after it every day.
Yup. Gotta train every day. Keeps you sane when you sit inside all day at work. You have to do something to get outside, be active, clear the head.
Well, you guys are hardcore. I know I was hardcore once upon in my time. I mean, I probably am still hardcore, but you guys definitely inspire me. And I know you guys do CrossFit or Jiu Jitsu pretty much every day, or one or the other every day.
Yeah, we'll usually do like Monday, Wednesday, Friday CrossFit, Tuesday, Thursday, and one day on the weekend jiu-jitsu. Obviously, that fluctuates depending on our mood and what we have going on, but something similar to that. Try and get 5, 6 days a weekend.
Yeah, you guys, I love it. And I love that you guys do everything. You guys usually train every day together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most days, except for the
Um,
Friday nights.
oh, yeah, that's right. Women's class, jujitsu. Yeah.
Hmm.
You could come to that, though, and coach.
I
I'm
could.
sure
It's
you
it's
could
Chris's
come.
time to hang out with you guys, though.
Yeah, I know. I love your wife. So, just a little bit background. Um, Kevin and Kristen are Blair and I's dear friends, and um, we're super, our little clique is very tight. So I love, getting to know Kristen and Kevin. Um, I always tell you that you're like the puppet master. You always like, I feel like you're effing with my mind. And I know you've had a background and a training that not many people get to endure or like want to take on. And I find that it's very honorable, and it's also it's mysterious. So your background, you're a Navy SEAL, and
Mhm.
how long ago was it that you embarked on that journey?
I went through Buds in 2012.
2012. So what is that like? I'm
10
sorry,
years
like
ago,
10 years ago? Am
almost
I off?
exactly 10 years ago now.
Yeah. And was that something that you grew up thinking that you always wanted to do, or were you raised in a
Yeah,
family?
I met a guy who's my cousin's best friend when my cousin joined the Navy, and he was a SEAL, and I think I was 12 years old or something like that, young and impressionable.
Uh huh.
And honestly, I was so enamored with it that I never figured out anything that I'd rather do. And it took me a while to get there. It's one of those things where it's almost more difficult just to get a chance at becoming a SEAL than it is becoming a
Mm-hmm.
SEAL. I didn't go through training until I was 27.
Oh wow, so you were older.
Mm-hmm.
So you were like, so you were 12 when what was it about him that like sparked that interest in you, or what was it about him that had you like so fascinated with it?
It was just such a mysterious yet exciting world that he was describing. Most people don't know anything about it, especially back then, because I was late 90s. So
Mm-hmm.
there weren't any of these books. There wasn't that Discovery Channel documentary. Um, there might have been a couple of Vietnam era stories that were out and about, but unless you knew someone in that community, most people didn't know what they were, who they were, what they did. And so hearing about it firsthand from somebody that was in that community, especially at that age, like that sounds so cool. That's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
just it just gets stuck in your head. And I'm that type of person. When I get something stuck in my head, I keep pushing until I either get it or I realize it's impossible to do.
Hmm. That's fascinating. So did your parents like support you in that, or were they like trying to deter you from it?
No, they've always been real supportive of everything I've done. I was a Marine before that. Went to the Naval Academy, and so it was a long road coming. It wasn't like I one day came home and said I enlisted in the Navy and I'm going off to Buds tomorrow.
Right.
Um, it, it was very apparent that this is what I wanted, and I was constantly pushing myself to go down a path that would get me there.
So you started that journey when you said you were in the Marine Corps. So
Yeah,
that was like that's like a totally different division, correct?
I went to the Naval Academy, uh, thinking that would be a
Oh,
great
cool.
route to go. I mean, don't get me wrong, Naval Academy is a great school, a great opportunity. But in terms of becoming a SEAL, it is not necessarily the best route to take. Uh, it's, it's another 4 years of school that you're going to before you even really officially join the military.
Right.
And then there's no guarantee you're gonna get it from there. And then in my case, I wasn't selected to go to Buds from school, so I went Marine Corps instead, which
Oh,
took me a whole different route, way out of way out of the typical way people would go to become a SEAL. It's extremely difficult in the sense that you're now dealing with different government agencies trying to get them to line up and let you do something. The Marine Corps and the Navy work together, but there's not a lot of cross collaboration, I guess you can say. You don't
right.
just jump from one to the other, just like you don't jump from the Air Force to the Army or the Coast Guard to the Air Force. They're their own organization, and
Are
so
they rivals in any way?
no, no.
No,
I
there's
mean,
no
it's
like
like sibling rivalry.
right.
That competitive rivalry where
You're on the
you're
same team but yet like
exactly
different. Yeah.
exactly. And so, yeah, there's no animosity between the others. They're just different organizations. And so, it's like going to one university and then saying you want to play football at another university. Like it just doesn't typically work out. So you have to leave one, go to the other, which is a huge process in itself.
Right. So was your goal always to become a Navy SEAL and then
Mm-hmm.
you went these routes thinking that they would lead you to that?
It was the best option I had at the time,
Right.
and the options that gave me, um, the most meaning, that was the most exciting. And so figured I'd just stick with it and I'd figure out a plan along the way. I'm number one to sit there and just stew over a plan until it's perfect. I usually have some kind of 70% idea of what I'm doing and figure out the rest on the way.
I kind of love that. And you always said that you're like, things always just work out. And I always know that they're going to work out. Has
Mm-hmm.
that kind of been, I mean, we've had a recent conversation about that. Does, has that always been kind of your philosophy or was that something that you've adapted over time?
Yeah. I mean, you can look at it one of two ways. One, the universe is making sure I'm taken care of, or two, you just have such a flexible mentality that no matter what situation you're in, you can always find another option to take, and you just keep taking options and options and options until the
Whoa.
time you end up where you are, or until you
Yeah.
end up where you want to be.
It's like what comes first. You know?
Exactly. Have
Yeah,
fun
that's
with it.
really profound.
Don't stress too much over any one decision.
Yeah.
You can always change your decision and go a different direction later.
I think that's really profound because I know for me, I'm always like, I have to get it right. And I hear too, like, there's a perfectionism that I always try to achieve. But when you say, like, oh, I need to know 70% of it, like, it really gives up the whole
Mm-hmm.
perfectionism ordeal, which to me, like, you seem so meticulous and so I don't want to say calculated, but like I said, you're orchestrating. It always feels like you're weighing out like the pros and cons. And I don't know if that's something like either A, you're born with, or that like through your rigorous training and mindset and discipline that you've maybe honed it. Maybe it was a part of you that you just kind of like honed in on.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a little bit of both. Where you have a particular way of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and as you keep working on that and it gets validated, you keep trying it over and over and over again, you just get better at it. Yeah, I definitely weigh the pros and cons constantly, but that's all it's about. It's kind of a binary way to go through life. You either are going to do this or you're not going to do this, and then you just find something that you just keep finding that on or off um, decision until you get to where you want to be. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. It's worked well for me because I don't get stressed out if things don't really go my way. I'll just say, okay, this isn't working. I'll do something different.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people that plan very well and they want to have everything nicely lined up, which has its benefits. And then there's people like me, which are much more off the cuff, and I'll make decisions on the way. Having a nice plan is good for some things, but if you get too attached to it, you'll end up heartbroken or frustrated. But sometimes going into something without a plan can be just as frustrating because you could have done some planning beforehand to make it a little bit easier. And so it's finding that balance between the two of just going through without a plan and going through with a perfect plan that may never get executed because you're constantly refining it.
Yeah, I love that. And so you talk about like the plan, and so your plan was to go into to be a SEAL, but you had this other path, and then I heard attachments in there.
Mm-hmm.
So what was like what was your like Naval Academy experience like? Was that like a positive experience, or what did you go in to like learn, or do you learn like a trade within the military at that time, or what's that
No, it's
like?
basically a regular university in the sense that you're going there, you're getting a bachelor of science degree, and it's everything from English and history through math, some kind of science, or an engineering degree.
Mm-hmm.
As far as education, it's pretty typical. What is atypical is the fact that you are in the military, you wear uniforms, uh, you get some level of professional military education. So they have leadership classes, they have uh, nautical navigation, they have military law, stuff like that, so that when you get out, you have skill sets that'll be useful when you graduate. I would say overall, it was a net positive. Was it extremely frustrating and annoying along the way? Absolutely.
What was annoying about it?
It's it's a very controlling environment, more so than the regular military.
Because are you when you go there, are you signing up to go into the military as is it a commander after, or like you have a certain rank,
Yeah,
like and you have?
The Naval Academy, you either go into the Navy or the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
So the Navy, you go in as an ensign. The Marine Corps, it's a second lieutenant. But both of them are the most junior level officers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, they are training you for the military.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Do you
a
have to serve a certain amount of time, like
mhm.
with your commitment in going into the Naval
Yeah,
Academy?
you owe 5 years when you graduate.
Okay.
So you have the first 2 years to decide. If you leave within the first 2 years, it's no harm, no foul. You don't owe anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you leave from the third year on, there's actually a ceremony at the beginning of your junior year where you sign the paperwork saying that you're going to finish out your 2 years and then you'll serve at least 5 years
Oh wow.
graduation.
That's crazy. And then at that time, are you picking like the Navy or Marine Corps at that time?
During your well, throughout the time you're there, you get exposed to a bunch of different things. During the
Mm-hmm.
summers, you do training with both the Navy and the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And then your senior year, you put in your final choices. And right before Thanksgiving, they have service selection night where everyone figures out what they're going to be doing when they graduate. So whether they serve on ships, they're going to be flying planes or helicopters, submarines, SEALs, EOD, or Marine Corps. Marine Corps does its own selection process once you go through their training pipeline. So when you graduate from the Naval Academy as a Marine, it's just Marine ground or Marine air. And then
Yeah.
from there, during the follow-on training, you get put in a specific field within the Marine Corps.
So Marine Corps is air and water, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what did you get selected for?
I did communications. So that's my personality, right? We're
Yes.
doing like satellites,
Of
radios,
course you
computers.
did. You're controlling it all. That's funny. So where were you stationed when you got out?
Most of the time it was Pendleton. So here in
Oh,
San
okay,
Diego,
cool. And then so you grew up in California, correct?
Northern California,
Northern
Bay Area.
California. So then you came, you got stationed at Pendleton, and then you just kind of settled here in California, in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And
SEAL training
then,
here in San Diego as well. So
right.
did 3 years at Pendleton, then went down to Coronado. Did a bunch of years down there.
What does that mean?
Um, Coronado.
Well, I know that. So you're in the Marine Corps and you served how long in the Marine Corps?
4 years.
4 years. And
Three of them
then
were at Pendleton.
from there you went into the Navy.
From there, I got out to go through SEAL training. So
And
left the Marine Corps, joined the Navy. It was a seamless process. It was like literally one day they processed me out of the Marine Corps. The next day, I was officially in to the Navy and was sworn in there.
but you had to serve your full time. Like you couldn't make that switch until like your commitment was done. Is that?
They allowed me to serve my commitment from the Marine Corps, the remainder with the Navy.
Oh,
I
okay.
did
So cool.
another 8 years with them, so they got more than their pound of flesh.
Right. So they're pound of flesh. It's pretty much like it, right?
It's,
A body. So you then okay, so then you sign up for the Navy, and at that time, even if you make the buds or not, or if you go in to be a SEAL, you still have to serve out that commitment,
yeah,
correct?
it was an all-in gamble. If I didn't
Mm-hmm.
make it through SEAL training, the Navy would have owned me, and they could have put me on a ship, on a submarine, whatever they
Right.
felt like doing with me. I didn't have a plan B in that case.
Right. So you were just, and at this, in your 28, you said at this time, going into the Navy?
I just turned 27.
27. So you go in, are you like, holy shit, or you're just like, yeah, we're gonna do this? And
Yeah,
well, so actually, so you went to the Navy, like, because you also said back when not everybody gets that opportunity. What happened for you that you got the opportunity to go to Buds?
like I said, it's like you're going to one university and then you want to go play sports for another. Most people don't go to a school that they don't want to play sports at. They're going to go to the one they want to join. Um, and that's how it typically is with SEALs too. People don't typically join the Army or the Marine Corps and
Mm-hmm.
then say they want to go to Buds. So it's not like there's a huge competitive pool that I was competing against,
Mm-hmm.
but the bureauc- the bureaucratic process of going through it. So I had to interview and kind of try out with the SEAL community, and then once they accept me, I take that letter and go to the Marine Corps and say, "Hey,
Mm.
they've said they want me, but they need you to let me go and join the Navy." So that has to go all the way up through the Marine Corps chain of command, literally to the commandant's office. They need to say, "We're good with letting you go." And then the Marine Corps needs to talk to the Navy, and they need to figure out what date I'm going to leave one and join the other so I don't have a break in service. It literally took 8 months from the day I got the
Mm.
letter saying that the SEALs accepted me to go through their training program to when I actually left the Marine Corps.
Is that considered a long time or a short period of time in terms of that
I think it's
process?
normal for that process,
Yeah.
but I mean, when you're sitting around waiting to hear and you don't have much information along the way, it's excruciatingly slow.
Yeah. Because you're just like, I want to go.
Well, also, your command doesn't know what to do with you. They're like, we don't know when you're leaving, so we're not going to have you
Uh,
go to another unit. We're not going to have you deploy. So there's a lot of sitting around, kind of waiting to see what's going to happen.
and yeah, and you're like, knowing your personality, you're just like chomping at the bit. Like, so, and at that time though, too, like, are you aware of like the rigorous training or have any idea, like, once you go and if you go, what that is like, how are you preparing your mind for that at that time and body, I guess?
I mean, I was pretty fortunate. A lot of my friends from the Naval Academy went through training, and I was
They
still
went through what they went
they
through
went through Bud.
this.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the guys that got SEALs straight from the Naval Academy, I was still in
Mm-hmm.
touch with them. So I'd chat with them about what they had going on, um, and just hearing stories through my friend network of what they went through. So I wasn't going into it blind. I had
Yeah,
a
but
pretty good
still, like,
idea.
how do you prepare? I mean, again, it's like kind of a mystery. And yeah, like you say, at that time, there's probably not that much news or information about it because it was kind of like this closed
Mm-hmm.
book, so to say, like a secret society. Now there's like more information about it, but it still seems like this mysterious like society and only the elite of the elite. So I mean, even hearing and talking about it, it's like that's one thing, but actually physically doing it and mentally preparing is like I feel like a complete different thing.
It is, but at the same time, I've wanted it for so long. At that point,
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't. My
And
mind.
you're old at that point. You're 27 now. Your body
I was
is
my prime.
old.
I was my prime. I mean, I'd wanted it and been training for it, so I didn't have to. It wasn't like I had to go through a mental shift. It wasn't like I
Hmm.
was someone that was sitting around on a couch and all of a sudden I was going to go run a marathon. You know, I was still very active in the Marine Corps. I was doing CrossFit then. I was an instructor with their martial arts program, and I always just dabbled around a bunch of different things. And so I was always very active. So I didn't have to change much about my daily habits once I got there. That was just part of who I
Oh,
was.
interesting.
And that's who's typically successful. You know, if
Right.
you're having to fight against who you are as a person, it's going to be much more difficult to get through something like that than someone that enjoys working out, that enjoys being put in type 2 fun, stuff that maybe not so enjoyable at the time, but afterwards makes for great stories.
Right. What, so that is that what type 2 fun is?
Yeah, yeah. So like when Chris and I hiked the Grand Canyon 50 miles over 4 days,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be fun. Walking for 50 miles, it's not fun.
Yeah.
But looking back
But the
on it, like, yeah,
satisfaction.
yeah, it's beautiful. You had a fun experience. It makes for good memories and good conversations.
Mm-hmm.
You're happy. You're happy you did it. You, you are happy you did it when it's done, but during it, you're cussing yourself out. You're like, who puts on a backpack and walks for 50 miles?
Right. That's
And
funny.
that,
Yeah, let's go through Bud's training just for type 2 fun.
yeah, like, I mean,
You're
honestly,
sick in the head, dude.
half the reason I made it through is like I know buds isn't what being a SEAL is. It is just
Right.
it's the vetting process, and it was my curiosity of what SEALs actually do.
Uh-huh.
They don't just roll around the sand on the beach getting wet and sandy, beat up by their instructors. That's not what being a SEAL is. That's just the entry process. I wanted to know what they actually did, what type of training they did, what type of missions they went on, and that's what drove me to succeed. You know,
Right. It was like thinking past that almost
yeah, I
and
was looking
not
way
getting caught
past
up.
buds.
And maybe at that age, like the maturity that you had at that point, it was like a perfect time because don't aren't like a lot of people going through it like 18 to like 20 perhaps.
I think the average age is like 24 because there are some older ones
Uh-huh.
that go through. Like there was one guy in my class, I think he turned 35 before
Oh wow, I didn't think they let people that old
he had a
through.
special exemption. But yeah,
Okay.
so I think the average age is like 24, 25 because you know you do
Uh-huh.
get those 18, 19-year-olds that go through, but you also have people like me that are in their late 20s, and so it evens it out. But yeah, it definitely made me much more comfortable in that situation because I'd already gone through the Naval Academy. I'd already gone
Mm-hmm.
through the Marine Corps initial training. I'd done 4 years with the Marine Corps. I had a pretty good idea of how the military worked and just the mind games they like to play
Mm-hmm.
to stress people out. And so if you don't realize that everything they're doing is part of a larger game, you know, you're going to get caught up in the emotions and get stressed out, and which is going to stress out other people around you, and then um, stress is contagious and hysteria is contagious, and people start freaking out, and then they turn on each other, and everything becomes much more difficult. Where if you go into it knowing that the instructors are yelling at you because they need to yell at you and they're trying to make you uncomfortable, and you just let it go,
Yeah.
you can go into it with a much more stable mindset, and it's not nearly as bad.
Right. And I know, like, I mean, this is only a little degree of it, but I know, like, with the jujitsu training, it's like being comfortable with the uncomfortability, it sounds kind of like. And you can kind, it almost sounded like you disassociated from, like, the whole experience a little bit, just
But
to,
yeah,
yeah, you probably have to, right?
it's the same exact way. You're getting stacked on top of yourself. Are you gonna freak out and start hyperventilating and
Yeah.
the pulse, or are you just gonna sit there and realize that they don't have a choke on you? It's just an annoying position that you're in,
Yeah.
and to think of a way to get out of it.
Yeah.
Just,
Right. It's always
be,
like, well, and it's, yeah, it's like super quick thinking to kind of come up with a solution,
mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so the difference
Um,
between buzz and jujitsu is that jujitsu, you know, a round is over in 5 minutes. The class is over in an hour, where buzz goes on for 6 months.
right.
So you need to keep that mindset of, all right, today's gonna be another uncomfortable position. It's gonna be the same as before. You're gonna get through it, and you're gonna do another day, and then another day,
Yeah.
and another day.
Right. So just a little statistic, and you can say if this is true or not that I just got off online is Each year, about 1,000 recruits make it to SEAL training. About 250 complete their training and join approximately 2,000 more active SEALs who work among 9 active duty teams.
Hmm.
Some SEAL candidates choose to drop out of the program and some are forced out. Is that pretty accurate, like on the numbers of?
Yeah, yeah, and the number that wasn't in there was, how many people want to become SEALs, how many people put in an application
Mm-hmm.
with the Navy to become a SEAL, how many of them complete the training, and how many of them are actually accepted. So the 1,000 that are accepted, how many thousands are lining up behind them
Yeah.
trying to get a spot? And that's what I was coming into every day when I was in the Marine Corps, and even when I was at the Naval Academy. I kept trying to get the chance to try it, and I
Yeah.
wasn't given that chance. From graduating the Naval Academy, it took me 3.5 years of trying to get over there.
Is it every year you're like applying or whatnot?
I started applying about 2.5 years in. No, I waited till I got back from my first deployment. So that was end of 2010 was when I put in
Mm-hmm.
my first application.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get that one. Put in a second application in 2011. Got the response at the end of 2011 and left the Marine Corps in 2012.
Oh, cool.
So,
So, I mean, yeah, because I have other friends. I used to train at US CrossFit
mhm.
with under Mark Devine, who is ex Navy SEAL as well, and he has his Unbeatable Mind program. But did you train there as well?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mark actually wrote one of my letters of recommendation when I was trying to transfer
Oh,
over.
cool. So, did you train? Because I know now you're at oh shoot, it's like
Counterculture.
counterculture. But were you training there before? Because I know SEALs like who are prep or people who want to go into the SEALs come and train under Mark to kind
Yeah.
of get that. Is that what you did too?
Yeah, before my first deployment, I was training there. So I was living in Del Mar at the time. And I'd actually heard about SEAL Fit when I was still living on the East Coast. I just thought it was an online training program. And so I was
Hmm.
doing some of the workouts from there.
Yeah.
And when I moved from Virginia out to San Diego, I was on the website. I was looking for something. I scrolled down at the bottom. You know how they have the contact information, and it said
Hmm.
whatever, Second Street in
Encinitas.
Encinitas. I
Yeah.
was like, wait a minute, I've seen Encinitas. I didn't actually know Encinitas, but I drive through it, driving from Del
Oh,
Mar
okay.
all
Uh
the
huh.
time. I was like, I know Encinitas. I can drive over. There's like 5 miles away, 10 miles away.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
so I drove over there one day and just showed up like, hey, I've been paying for your programming online, and I just moved out here and saw that you have a facility here. Stopped the online membership and started doing the in-person SEAL Fit / US CrossFit stuff.
Cool. And that was before Buds.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
in 2009.
Okay. I must have just missed you. I think we realized I just missed you, or I think maybe you were training with Blair. Um, we must have just somehow crisscrossed or something like that. Because
Yeah, I was there from 2009 until the beginning of 2010. And then when I came back from my
yeah,
deployment, I went a little bit, but a lot of the people that I knew that I'd hang out with before, a lot of those guys either moved away or went off to Buds. And so
mm-hmm.
when I came back, it was just a different crew, which is fine, but I didn't have the same attachment that I did before.
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely like it was my first experience of CrossFit, and then as I've gone on to do different CrossFits, it's like very different than CrossFit because it was just more like endurance and yeah, military based. But yeah, it was cool being in that environment because it was kind of everyone was just it was like very
It was a very
um
close knit group.
it was a close knit group and it was very catered towards like military training or like and you suffer together. So then um you get the opportunity to go into Buds. And what is Buds? Because my understanding it's a 6 month program.
Yeah. So the first part, Buds prop. So Bud stands for basic underwater demolition / SEAL training. So it's
Mm-hmm.
BUD / S.
And everybody, so out of the 1,000 recruits, you that get the opportunity to go to SEALs are going to go through this training, or is there more
Yeah.
training just to get to this point?
No, that well, the enlisted guys, when they first enlist in the military, they'll go out to
Mm-hmm.
Great Lakes where the
Mm-hmm.
Navy has their boot camp. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody joining the Navy goes out to Great Lakes, Illinois, and it's their initiation into the military as a whole. More
Did you have to
recently,
do that part since you were
no,
already
yeah,
okay?
because I was already in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but more recently, I think in like the last 15 years or so, because guys that are trying to become SEALs are obviously in great shape and they're training to a whole different level than the average person joining the military. What they're realizing is guys that were, they put everybody from people who are going to be cooks and supply people and people serving on ships and SEALs all in the same group during boot camp. What they're seeing is that the guys that were trying for SEALs were actually decreasing in their fitness because they're trying to get everyone to the same baseline.
Yeah.
So they started sending all the Bud students to boot camp together,
Mm-hmm.
and they would give them a separately curated experience with additional fitness like swimming and breath holding, stuff like that. Plus, it allows everybody in the class to get to know each other a little bit
Bond.
more instead
Yeah.
of just showing up on day one of Buds and meeting everyone. They now
Mm-hmm.
have all of boot camp there together as well. So it helps with that camaraderie, which in itself is a huge benefit to have when going through Buds. So
So you didn't? Did you do that experience or you didn't? Okay.
I joined the class when I just showed up in Coronado.
And
I'd say,
that's phase one. Is it like phase one?
well, that's just boot camp, and then they show
Okay.
up, and then Buds is down in Coronado, and that's 6 months. Phase one, phase two, phase three. Phase one is just can you take punishment. Phase two is the diving, and phase three is land warfare. So we do shooting, demolition, and very basic stuff in terms of military tactics, but it's getting everyone to the same baseline again because most people that join the military don't have weapons training. They definitely don't.
Right.
Very few people have explosives training whatsoever, and so getting everyone the same level of skill set with shooting a pistol, shooting a rifle, setting explosive charges. That's all done in phase three or third phase. After that, then they started streamlining the training. They used to have people just go to their SEAL teams and then they get on the job training at the team. They realized that people were getting very different levels of training depending on where they went. So they standardized it all. And now you go to SQT, which is SEAL qualification training. And
Mm-hmm.
that's another 6 months where you learn the very specific tactics that SEALs use. So when you show up with the SEAL team now, you have more of the fundamental building blocks to become a skilled operator.
Mm. So what at that's interesting too because you're saying like at this point they're all trying to get everybody caught up to like the same level. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone's coming in at different levels. But is that where the discrepancy is of what's like torturous to people? Because some people just might not be able to get to that level. Is that and then they drop out or they're not making it?
Yeah. So the first phase is just how much you can be a glutton for punishment. That's when you see all the iconic pictures of guys just wet and sandy, running around with the boat on your head, doing the log PT where they holding the logs either here or overhead, doing stuff. That's mostly first phase, unless your
And
class
how long is that phase lasting?
once 2 months.
1 to 2 months?
2 months, all of them.
Two
So
months.
first, second, and third phase are all 2 months each.
Are they like I mean, are you up like 24 hours, 72 hours or like what's your normal typical like day of training?
If you're just looking at it from the outside, it just looks like pure mayhem, but it's actually a very organized, scheduled, pre-planned
Hmm.
series of evolution for the whole 6 months. Like even Hell Week, which is nonstop 24 hours a day from Sunday night until Friday morning. So it's 110 hours of
Is that
training.
before phase 1?
That's during
Um,
phase.
okay.
That's in the middle of phase one. Um, Even though that's 110 hours straight, they actually have a very specific schedule of the first 2 hours they call breakout. There's just mayhem going on. They're shooting guns and flashbangs and smoke grenades, and everyone's running around, getting wet and sandy. All that's very organized. And then after that, they're going to have you do surf torture, and then they're going to have you run around the boat on your head, and then there's going to be a meal, and then they're going to run around more of the boat on your head, and then there's going to be a snack, and then there's going to be more surf torture, and then there's going to be a snack, and then there's
this is all this phase one.
This is all like Hell Week. Like it's literally just 110 hours straight.
And this is in phase one.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where the majority of people drop out or don't make it? Is phase one?
You probably get 80% of the people who quit, rough number, will be during phase one. The rest of the people who don't make it through training at that point typically fail some kind of evolution.
It's like the water one, right? It's because I always hear like the water, because phase two is the water, right? Where you're like going in freezing cold water and you have to like.
It's not freezing cold water. It's all the dive training. So you start out with open circuit training, so typical scuba diving, typical scuba diving stuff, where you breathe in air from a tank, you exhale, it goes out into the water, and then after you make it through that pretty challenging series of events that they have, then you go into closed circuit training, which is breathing pure oxygen. So you're breathing pure oxygen out of a tank, goes in through one hose. When you exhale, it goes back into the system, and there's a complex series of chemistry and physics that happens, but basically it scrubs out everything other than the oxygen, and so you can keep breathing stuff. So with a tank about the size of a football, you can be underwater for about 4 hours.
Oh, interesting.
But you don't go very deep. You're hanging out around 10.
I've always heard stories of people getting like hypothermia and just like getting pneumonia. I don't know if it's that point, but just, I had someone else I knew that like could not get past that point because every time they got to the water and the hypothermia or they get pneumonia and just they couldn't get past that point like 2 or 3 times.
I mean, there's a huge amount of making it through buds that is just pure luck. Like my first time going through.
Really? You think it's pure luck?
I mean, it's not all pure luck, obviously, grit, but there's a lot of luck involved. Like my first time going through Hell Week, I got what's called SIPE, which is swimmer-induced pulmonary edema. The story of it is you have blood in your lungs. And it's not good. But there's nothing I could have done. There's nothing I could do about it. You can't breathe very well. So my blood oxygen, blood oxygen saturation was down into the 80%.
Oh, shoot. And they still let you go on?
No, they rolled me out of that class. It basically feels like everywhere you're going, you're at a full sprint because you're just not enough oxygen. Like if you ever been to Breckenridge up in Colorado and gone skiing, if you've gone straight from San Diego to Breckenridge and you try running around, it's miserable.
Yeah.
That's what having SIPE is like. Obviously, it can get much worse and you can die from it if you keep getting more and more fluid.
Yeah. So. Well, because you're not getting you're not getting oxygen to the brain, right?
Yeah, you basically drown in your own lungs.
So that happened on your first time, and then what, you got put back? Did you have to go back through phase one again?
From the very beginning, yeah.
And then how long did you have to wait? Like, were you devastated?
Okay.
Like, so your first attempt going through at phase two, you got this?
No, so Hell Week is about halfway through phase one. It's the 4th week of phase one. And so it's actually the 7th week. Sorry. And so, you've done all this training to get there and you get rolled out of your class. Now you have to start all the way back at the beginning with a whole nother class. You know everything.
And you're all like your people.
It's new people, but more importantly, it's all the things you just did, and you know exactly what you just did. You have to do.
Oh yeah, you're like your head knows. Wait, and so also too. Oh shoot, I lost my train of thought on that. You so they don't like punish you. Like, how come they allowed you to go back? Like, if you didn't make it through, like, what makes it that someone drops out or gets injured to where they can't come back again? Like, how did they allow you to come back?
So there's 2 types of I guess reasons that you can get dropped from training. There's 3 ways you get out of training. 1, you quit. Like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm either sore, kind of hurt or whatever, but mostly I just don't want to be here anymore. The other 2 ways are you get hurt or you fail in evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
What constitutes as failing an evolution?
we have timed runs. We have to do 4 mile timed
Oh,
run
really?
once a week. We have timed swims, 2 mile timed swims, and the obstacle course
Mm-hmm.
is a timed evolution. So any of those are firm numbers that you need to match. And if you don't reach those and you fail too many,
Mm-hmm.
then they'll drop you from training. And depending on how much they like you and what the class backlog is behind you, they'll either roll you into another class or just drop you from training
Mm-hmm.
altogether. On the injury side, they'll usually give you about 6 months to heal. So if you break your leg, I've seen guys break femurs.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes even 6 months isn't going to be long enough to get back in. Where mine, once you get warmed up and kind of get a chance to rest, your body heals itself. Just like
Mm-hmm.
think of like having a flu or pneumonia. You're naturally just going to heal up once you get a chance to rest.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's a pretty quick healing process. So they're able to put me in the class following that. Where guys that fail evolutions or guys that quit, they're not going to be as kind unless they just really like you. Maybe you were hurt and you just weren't going to make the time run because you sprained an ankle and you kept pushing through. They recognize that there's extenuating circumstances. Guys aren't going to quit because they sprained an ankle,
Right.
but you're not going to run 4 miles on sand as well with a sprained ankle. So you might not meet the standards. So the instructors will see, they'll recognize that you put out, that you didn't quit, that you're in pain, and they'll sometimes let you recycle back through.
Yeah, I remember hearing David Goggins' story, like listening to his story. You're familiar with him, yeah?
I know of him. I've never actually met him though.
Yeah. Well, I've listened to his book, and that was like I think he had like a broken leg and like kept going. But I know like the time runs, I believe, was like a thing for him. But so at this point, you get this thing, and you have to like, what are you doing for the 6 months then? Are you like just trying to heal? Do you have to still work in as like in the Navy, or like what are you
They have
doing?
a holding unit where guys that have been rolled out of a class or guys that are waiting to class up, uh, they they show up every day. They do moderate level of training, but it's like being in purgatory.
Oh
You go there
man.
every day. You run, you swim, you do these training evolutions. They're obviously not trying to get you to quit
Yeah.
from this holding unit, but it's not easy. And every day that you show up there is more strain on your body, but you're not actually making any progress forward. Because
Did
until
they
you're in
give
a,
you time? Did they give you time to heal your lungs?
I asked to get put right into the next class, which started 5 days later. So I got rolled out Tuesday night. I officially got rolled out Wednesday morning of Hell Week, and I was in the next class Monday morning.
Oh my God, Kevin,
Well, I didn't want to sit around
you're
for
so, I know, I get that,
Wednesday.
but so you weren't really probably fully healed, right?
Yeah, I had enough time.
Yeah. So now you're going in. You have to redo at that. What point? Like how many weeks had? Because you that was phase one. Like how many weeks had you gone through at this point
And
to
a
then
half,
have to? How many?
6.5.
6.5. So now you have to repeat the 6.5. At least you weren't like in phase three or something and have to go
But
there again.
there's a couple reset points. So after you finish Hell Week and you go from a
Mm-hmm.
white T-shirt to a brown T-shirt, showing
Mm-hmm.
that you're post Hell Week.
Oh, you have to go back.
There's some guys that are so messed up after Hell Week they can't keep going with that class, but
Mm-hmm.
they'll get credit for finishing Hell Week, and so
Mm-hmm.
they'll join up with a later class after that class finishes Hell Week.
Okay. Okay.
There's another reset point at once you finish phase one and go into the dive phase. There's another reset point after you finish what they call pool comp, which is the
Mm-hmm.
rigorous final exam, I guess you can say,
Mm-hmm.
scuba diving portion.
Mm-hmm.
If you make it past that, but again get hurt, they'll start you post pool comp, and then phase three is the next one. And phase three, you just have to do the whole way through. We go out to San Clemente Island for 7 of the 8 weeks. We do a week of land nav, and then we go out to San Clemente Island for 7 weeks. It's a long time.
So you got through the first phase then with no problem on your second time. Was it
Yeah.
harder?
After that first roll, I went straight through the class, through the rest of
Was it
training.
hard, or was like because you're like I already know this, or was
It
it
was
harder the second time?
significantly easier the second
Uh,
time because the surprise is gone. You know
mm-hmm.
almost everything of what's going on, and you know the instructors too,
Mm-hmm.
which helps. You know a lot of the personalities.
Right. And then after that, how was each phase after that?
Each one
Because
had its own challenges, but
which one was the hardest?
I hated second phase. And it was
What
like
what
I
about
enjoy
it?
diving. I like being in the water. I like diving.
But you have all your gear on, right? You're like soaking wet.
It's not even that. Uh, it's the games that they play
Uh huh.
with our class specifically. They had a bone to pick for some reason with us, and so from the beginning when we showed up at second phase, it was just, for lack of better words, a lot of fuckery.
I was gonna say because I feel like you're a person that like you don't allow people to fuck with you. Like, how do you bite your tongue and not? I mean, I know you probably have all the respect, and again, it's like the course of like where you want to get and what you have to do, so you probably could put it aside. But I really don't see you like someone of like
Sometimes you have to
you're
bite your tongue.
yeah, God, yeah. So it was more like the mental part at that point in phase two was the
It was a
challenging
lot of
part.
the training itself was fine. It was just a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stupid games that they were playing with us that made it particularly miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the middle
Interesting.
of winter, so we started second phase November,
Oh, geez.
maybe I
Yeah.
think it was the end of October.
So it's cold.
Like to give you an idea, one of our dives we had to do in the bay in December, they were mad at us, and so they told us to take our wetsuits off, and we had to do the whole dive without a wetsuit. We're just like, what? It was so cold.
And is it nighttime or is it like
Yeah,
during the
it
day
was a
at
night
least?
dive.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
man.
it's just little things like that to mess with you, where it's not any one thing that they do. It's always the accumulation of all the things that
Hmm.
have happened already, and you know that most of those things are probably going to happen again in the future. Like,
Hmm.
do you really want to keep doing this? Is
Hmm.
it worth it?
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
if you
I
don't,
bet. Like, do you ask that question a lot during the time, or you
I
just try not to
fortunately
think
was like,
about it?
I just need to get through this because I know this isn't
Hmm.
what it's like.
Mm.
I just need to keep pushing through, and it'll eventually be over.
I'm so fascinated by it because again, it's like it's so mysterious. It's like hush hush, but I know. So you finally make it through. So phase two is your hardest. What's like graduation like? So I guess you go through all the other phases. What? Because now you dwindle down. You are now with another team. You're bonded with that second team. Then again, I guess because your first team, do you finally get bonded with those people? Are you kind of then like a leader because now they already know that you've gone through it, or are you like
Yeah,
how is that?
it definitely helped being able to tell people what they can expect.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing compares to actually you've gone through it and experiencing it before, but hearing firsthand what all the evolutions are going to be like, what it's probably going to feel like and look like, and what to expect, it helps them ease their nerves and anxiety a little bit.
Yeah. And so then what is graduation day like?
They hand us a certificate and say, "Congratulations, you start SQT in a week."
Oh shit, you only get a week off?
It wasn't even a week off. It was we had we had a lot of processing stuff, so you have to get processed out of that unit. You have to check in, and there's a bunch of gear you need to get now that you finish buds.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a SEAL yet, but you get a lot of the gear because you
Mm-hmm.
have to go through the same training, and so there's so much
Oh
stuff.
yeah, there's another 6 months of training, right? At that point. Are you overwhelmed with joy? Are you tired? Are you like what's your emotional state at that point? Over it?
I feel like it's like when people in business are like, I just want to make $200,000 this year, and then they hit $200,000. They're like, cool. Let's make 300,000 now.
Yeah.
This is always something else.
Yeah.
You finish that milestone, you're like, cool,
Hmm.
what's next? And you
What's
finish that
next?
one, cool, what's next? And there's honestly probably a lack of gratitude that should be felt, but you're just so in it that you just don't care that that's done. You're like, cool, I'm happy that's done, happy that's behind me, but my focus is now on this next hill
Hmm.
that I need to get over.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of people telling me like, dude, you should be really proud of where you're at. Like, yeah, I don't care. I need to get to this next thing. And then once you finish SCP, now you get to a SEAL platoon, you get to perform there, and then you go to another one, and then another one. It's just always one more thing you're trying to do, and you're trying to improve. It's kind of an endless cycle of self improvement.
Do you think though that's a trait of you?
Could be.
Yeah. So you go through the next 6 months, and is the next 6 months as dramatic as the first 6 months?
Yeah.
Because are they still like just not trying? Are they at this point you're a SEAL, or like people quitting at this point, or is it just like you're
Pretty
good?
much no one quits at this point, and they're not trying to get you to quit.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they're pushing you throughout SEAL training. Even once you're a SEAL and you're at a platoon and you're going through your workup cycles for deployment,
Mm-hmm.
they're constantly making you miserable and pushing you to your limits.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the SEAL training motto is no, the only easy day was yesterday. You're
I like that.
always pushing the limits of what you think is possible, and they say that even in buds, you're going to be colder when you get to the teams because you know you're in the water longer. You're working in snowy or something environments. And once you get into deployments, it's not a controlled training environment anymore.
Right.
It's not instructors sitting there with the medical staff and the ambulance, keeping a strict record of activity level, water temperature, air temperature, how much you've eaten. Like when you're on deployment, you guys are fending for yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
you're either getting the mission done or you're not. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes you're putting yourself in some very precarious, dangerous situations. And that's what they're trying to train the mindset to of don't think of this as just get through training and then you're a SEAL and you've made it. It's always challenge yourself, push yourself. Don't don't rest on your laurels. Always try to um, earn your spot there in the teams.
That's cool. And I mean, I think like your mindset of like what's next, what's next. I mean, that maybe if it was a part of your trait of like your innate trait, it also probably helps serve you because it sounds like it's always like what's next, move forward. You're always preparing and
I mean, it's basically how I'm running my business now too.
yeah.
It gives me a hard time where all by all metrics, last year was a successful year.
Mm-hmm.
But as you're building a business, it's
Yeah, you can't rest on your laurels,
well,
right?
it's not even
It's
that. Like
like,
for a first year, we had a very good first year.
mm-hmm.
What I want the company to be, we're nowhere near that. So that's how I'm comparing it. It's not how did we do this year relative to other companies in their first year. It's how are we doing as a company compared to how I want the company to be. And so that's how I'm always pushing myself. And it can get frustrating. That's how you get
Yeah.
burnt out. If you're never acknowledging that you've come a long way,
Mm-hmm.
you're just only looking at the obstacles in front of you of what you need to get over instead of looking behind you and seeing all the obstacles you've overcome. You need to set some time aside to recognize what you've accomplished. Don't be satisfied and complacent with it, but acknowledge that you've done some great things, that you've overcome hurdles, that you've performed well, and that you have to keep doing that. Just looking at it as a constant improvement metric instead of uh, only looking at what's in front of you and what you're failing at the moment. Because it's very easy to get sucked into that mindset of, oh, we didn't get this done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like a human trait, right? But I think, what do you think you do to acknowledge, or like, do you stop, or
I have
because,
Chris.
yeah, she's a good egg, that one. But I know too, she always says how she gets frustrated because she's like, I do all this stuff and then it just works out for Kevin. She's so cute. But, and I know too, I mean, you guys like from the outside looking in, you guys are like living the dream, right? You have your own business
Mhm.
and you guys work together, which is probably an interesting dynamic. And then you just travel everywhere. You're gone pretty much like every month. You guys are off doing an adventures, and I know you guys love your adventures. You got your little animals around you, and you cook, you garden. It seems like you have the balance too, because you know might not recognize it, but your life is pretty full from my
Oh yeah,
perspective.
like we were just talking about it this morning. We were saying that it's not that often that in your 30s, and in Christian's case, being 30, owning a house in the town that is your dream town. I can't
Yeah.
think of a better place to permanently live than here in Encinitas. We have pretty much everything you could possibly want, to include great weather
And great friends.
and great friends. I mean, we have our bubbles. It's a real thing to be
Yeah,
in
I
a bubble.
know.
Our
We do
gym is
have
three
a good
miles
bubble.
away. Our
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu gym's 2.5. The beach is a mile away. We go everywhere on our e-bikes because it's sunny and beautiful out, and we can get there within a couple minutes. And
Yeah.
so, absolutely recognizing what you have, but we also went into this knowing that this was never meant to be a business that we're just gonna keep working at it until we're successful, and then when we're successful, we'll relax, because that's a moving metric. What is success? How much money is enough? Um, how much revenue is enough? How big of a business is enough? And so you just get into this, like we were talking about, where you hit that milestone, and then all you're doing is looking at the next one instead of enjoying what you have. And
Mm-hmm.
so we've been very conscious about building in fun now, so that
Mm-hmm.
it's that's the rhythm that we do, because otherwise you'll see yourself 40, 50, 60 years old, finally, maybe by your standards, successful, but you've just squandered all that time because you were devoting everything to the business. And so, could we be doing better? Could we be building the business and being more successful, putting all this time and effort into it? Absolutely. But what's the fun in that?
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like shit, you've like accomplished like going back to something that no one's ever accomplished. At that point, like what is next? You're like, yeah, I mean, if you take that mentality of what you did, you can accomplish anything, I would think. And like you said, you're applying it to your business, and well, we can talk about that. You left the military after,
12
just
years.
kind of close that conversation. So you did the Navy SEAL thing, and you left after 12 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went into working in a business for somebody else
Yeah.
as a recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a year, you're like, I can do this
On my own better.
on my own better. And that's what you did. And in your first year, you hit major goals.
Mm-hmm.
And then, which was what, the beginning of this year was when you went into your, no, sorry, over
January of
COVID.
2021
Yeah,
was when
you
we
went
started.
into your business, and then Kristen joined like in December
It was like
of
September, October.
last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's been with me for about 6 months now.
right. And so now you guys, like from talking to Kristen, it seems like you guys complement each other. Um, and like you have your strengths, she has her strengths, and you kind of blended, and now like you're just kicking ass.
Doing okay.
Yeah,
I'm happy with how it's going right now. So
yeah.
we've
And you
gone
have other people that work for you too, correct?
we've gone from a team of me to now a team of six, including me.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mhm. And
That's
we have
super cool.
people, one guy in Hawaii, one guy or one girl in Tennessee, uh, two other people here in San Diego, and then Christian and me.
Are they all your friends?
Either friends or people that were referred to us. So Jason is somebody I know. I met him when I was getting out of the military. He was in Naval Special Warfare with me.
Mm-hmm.
Ali is one of Kristen's friends, and then Jess was referred to me from someone I know within the Honor Foundation, a
Mm-hmm.
program I went through when I was getting out of the military. And then John was referred to me from my cousin, who does recruiting, and he'd been doing the reserves in the Air Force for a while, and he was looking for
Mm-hmm.
something different. But he's been doing remarkably well, and he's out in Hawaii.
Oh, cool. So you guys do recruiting for biotech
Mm-hmm.
companies? And how did you find that little niche, or was it just kind of by
Yeah.
accident?
Yeah, the last company I was with put me on their biotech team, and it was just an environment I thrived in. I
Yeah.
really love talking to the companies about what they're doing, the technology they're developing, and the candidates that were placed in there are some of the smartest, most driven people I've ever met. I talked to this one girl, and she had her, I forget the exact combination, but it was some combination of these four. She had her undergrad from Harvard, her PhD from Stanford, and then a postdoc from both MIT and Berkeley. It was like
Oh, wow. Yeah.
overachievers.
Yeah. In a different way, I think you're an overachiever.
They're all different.
Yeah. So that was a recruit that you were trying to find a job for?
Mhm.
And like, how do you like, are you more into finding the companies that need replacement? Or are you more the person that tries to find, like, talking with the people and then finding their,
That's where Christian and I have a good complementary relationship. Is I really like
mm-hmm,
the business development side of
mm-hmm,
finding the businesses to become clients,
mm-hmm.
and she's done remarkably well at finding the candidates to place at those companies.
Do you think your background of being a SEAL is helpful in people like connecting with you and to having you take them on as like customers? I would
I
say.
think it's very similar to having you know a degree from Harvard or working at a prestigious company. It's
Mm-hmm.
another. It's something people can see and immediately recognize as a competent, successful individual.
Mm-hmm.
You see someone that went to Harvard, they're smart and they're driven. If you see someone that worked at Boston Consulting Group, you know that they've probably had a very successful professional career to where they ended up there. If somebody's a SEAL, you know that they have a strong work ethic. They're trustworthy, and they'll work hard to get whatever needs to get done. And so it's just ways that people can recognize immediately the value someone potentially brings to the table. So I look at it as getting a foot in the door. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the Steel Trident will never land me a client, but it'll get my foot in the door to at least have the conversation with them, and then from there, hopefully my charm will win them over.
Yeah, that was kind of my next question. Do you like have it? Do you think that having your training has kind of given you like an upper hand in life to have just because you always say you're like, yeah, it's easy, like, but again, maybe it's like the mentality of like you're like, shit, I went through like some of the hardest stuff. Life is easy, right? After going
Well,
through.
it's easy because for me, I'm in flow when I do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's other things that aren't necessarily easy. That
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the
What's not easy, Kev?
well,
I
it's
want to hear
it's
this.
burdensome to do. So I have to sit down and very consciously be like, all right, I'm going to go through my accounting, or I'm going to write these emails, or I'm going to do this administrative stuff. Like I am happiest when I just get to talk with people and build the
Mm-hmm.
relationship and make connections. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like having to do repetitive paperwork. I don't like having to do numbers, and a lot of the very organized skills.
That's
I
why
don't
you
like
have Kristen now.
exactly, and and so being able to focus on the areas that I get energy from, again,
Mm-hmm.
talking with people, building relationships, it brings in business for the company, and then I have other people,
Yeah.
other tasks who, and I'm not just hiring people that are going to do those roles. I'm going to find people that enjoy doing those types of tasks. Like there's a reason why some people become accountants. There's a reason why some people become office managers. They
Mm-hmm.
like doing those types of tasks and they get energy from it. They
Oh,
don't
I
like,
love that.
there's
Uh-huh.
like you take an accountant, they're probably not going
Mm-hmm.
to be great if they have to be on phone calls
Mm-hmm.
with candidates and clients every
Mm-hmm.
day. But they don't want to talk
Mm-hmm.
with people. They want to look at the numbers and make sure everything's neat and organized in a box and in an accessible way. You put them in a situation where they're not comfortable and they're going to be miserable. And so that's what
Yeah.
one of the fun challenges of running a business has been,
Yeah.
is identifying what people are going to do well in certain roles and putting them into that role instead of just hiring somebody and then forcing that round
Mm-hmm.
peg into a square hole.
Yeah, I love that too, though, because you say it's like creating, like being in the flow. And it's like when you have that all working and being in the flow, you are creating a business out of inspiration and flow. And it's just, I can only see it being like prosperous and growing, right? Because
Yeah.
it's the
And that's why I
energy of
brought other
it.
people on, because I
Mm-hmm.
was literally doing the
Doing
business
it.
development, the candidate
Yeah.
searching, the paperwork, the accounting, the invoicing, everything I had to do. So I would recognize these are my tasks I need to complete. These are the ones I like to do. So these are the ones I'm going to outsource to other people. And it's been, you're constantly trying to do an iterative method where you see what works, what doesn't work, and as long as you recognize quickly enough that something isn't working and change it, there's no real harm or foul in making mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think's been harder, going through buds or starting your business?
Business has been more stressful.
Mm-hmm.
But you just show up, you put your head down, you work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was a structured environment. Where here, I'm
Yeah, there's no structure.
like half the time I'm flying this plane as I'm building it.
Yeah.
I never went through business school. I've never run a business before, and the military does not train you to run your own business.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that is a not necessarily a needed skill set. There's
Mm-hmm.
skill sets you can definitely take from being a business owner that would be beneficial in the military, but the act of being a business owner isn't necessarily something they need. And so I'm having to learn a lot on the go. I'm having to reach out to people, rely on my network to ask
Mm-hmm.
questions. Unfortunately, I've got a fantastic network of people who have a wide range of experiences who have been more than willing to help me.
Oh, that's cool.
And so it's becoming a process of learning as you go, and self-evaluating, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and just having fun with it. But
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely times when it gets a little stressful and you see the finances getting low, but then the universe provides,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's working out.
Yeah. And I know Kristen brings that balance to you. What's the name of your company?
Flintlock Solutions.
Flintlocks. Is there a story behind that?
There, there's the one I can tell that makes it sound inspirational, and then there's the one that actually happened, which is I created a business in the span of a week, and I needed to have a name. It's way too many former SEALs that have created companies that are Trident something,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I don't know. It seemed like a good name. It showed a little throwback to the military
Mm-hmm.
heritage. It's the image is a picture of a flintlock pistol. So think of
Mm-hmm.
like Revolutionary War old pistols where it's got that cocking thing on it. You put black powder in, um, and so it was a fun naval throwback. It was something that I could showcase my naval heritage, but they would also be eye catching and memorable.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I
Mm-hmm.
do. I appreciate your time in there. I do want to talk about, because I love this story of how you and Kristen met, um, because you literally met and got married like 3 months of knowing each other. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. And so, were you out of the military? No, you were in the military, right, at the time?
Mm-hmm.
And she was in Japan.
I
Was
was in Korea. She was in Hawaii.
But I thought she was working in. Oh no, she went to Korea to be with you, right?
Yeah, yeah. She
Okay, because I
was
thought
pretty
she.
much to
So
be
you
there.
met her. She was working somewhere, right? In a
I met
restaurant.
her. She had left New York to go to Hawaii on a teaching job. The Hawaiian public school system is so atrocious. It only took, it wasn't even a year before she finally realized it was one school year, so 9 months. And she actually got out there a little late because they had someone quit. So she backfilled it. It was just so bad that she was not willing to keep doing it. But she went out there because she wanted to be there by the ocean, enjoy the beach, enjoy the warm weather, and of course the surfing.
Yeah.
So she was figuring out ways to stay out there, and she was going back to school to be a physician assistant or something of that similar capacity,
Mm-hmm.
and was going to school and working at a bar. I think I met her the first or second night she was working in that bar.
Oh, really?
I was out there for work. It was a tough assignment. I was sent out there for 8 weeks to spend in Hawaii and traveling around
Yeah.
uh, the Pacific Theater
Uh-huh.
um, for military training, and I met her about 3 weeks into that training trip.
Did you know when, like, were you at that point where you're like, I want to get married? Or was it just like when you saw her? Because, right? Like, what happened?
I mean, I assumed that for the 2 years I was in Korea, it was going to be let's go have some fun, but I'm obviously not going to come back with a wife from this one. So
Yeah.
I was out there just have fun, enjoy life, and not take it too seriously. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, that's when life throws you a curveball.
Mm-hmm.
So I met her
So wait,
in
you were stationed in Korea, but then you got put into Hawaii for training?
yeah for I was out there for 5 weeks and then another 3 weeks to travel to other areas.
Okay.
Yeah, I met her near the beginning. We hung out for about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. When I went back to Korea, she came out there to visit for about 3 weeks.
How
And
did you make your move? Like, so she's working at a bar or a
yeah,
restaurant? A
yeah, it
bar?
was Nashville.
Let's see, what was your game? What was your move?
There's no game. I was able to be with friends. We were already
Oh,
pretty
you didn't start
sauced up.
singing to her or something like on Top
Uh, we,
Gun?
she, she was my waitress at the bar, and
Uh-huh.
we just went in there with a fun group. There's probably 10 of us,
Mm-hmm.
and she saw it as a dollar sign because
Oh, really?
I mean we're a big group.
Yeah.
It's a good tip,
Mm-hmm.
but I was just friendly chatting with her. She seemed fun. She told
Mm-hmm.
me she moved out there from New York to surf. So I
Mm-hmm.
asked her if she'd want to go on a date. She's like, I work too much. So I went back to the next night, saw her again,
Did
and
you go back the second night on purpose to see
yeah,
her, or were you just going,
she said
okay?
she was gonna be working there. I'm like, all right, I'll come back then.
Uh-huh.
So I said,
Ah. You're like, I've done this before.
like, I have Tuesday off. I'm gonna go surfing. You can join me if you want.
Oh, really?
I
That's
thought
nice
she
of
was
her.
gonna be a below average surfer. I mean, how many surfers do you know from New York? Not many.
Yeah, right. Well, Blair was. Wait, so did you surf at that point? Were you a surfer?
I had surfed. I would not consider myself a surfer,
Yeah, and
right?
you're on Oahu, right? Is she in the North? Are you? Did you surf the North Shore?
No, we were surfing just outside Waikiki.
Okay.
I think we were at Bowls, if I remember correctly. But yeah,
So
we did
was it
surf,
love at
surfing
first
and talking
sight
about
when she was
surf.
on the surfboard? You're like, oh yeah.
It was more of like, what did I get myself into? She seemed to,
She just rips.
at that point, I'd probably surfed maybe 50 times in my life.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So I was in way over my head in terms of her skill sets compared to mine. Like I can do just fine in the water. I'm not a drowning risk or anything, but
Yeah.
you know, I'll definitely take my beating from the waves.
Yeah. I love this so much. So so she like did her little thing and
Yep.
then you were like after that, well, how did that go down?
She's just a really cool chick, you know,
Right.
she had a good head on her shoulders. She was very self-aware, very playful, always outgoing, trying to do things. Didn't take life too seriously, which
She
was
does. She's so mature and she's
yeah,
so young and I'm like, God, you're more mature than I am. And you're like, I'm like double your age.
not that.
No, not that much, but I'm like, she's just so mature. But yeah, so then did you just and then you hung out like after that and you were
Mhm.
good with her? She was like, okay, I'm into you.
Yeah, I think she said she knew within the first couple of days that she was going to marry me. She didn't tell me that. But
Mm,
she had her mind made up pretty early on.
really? So she let her walls down? Because at first she was like, no, but then she's like, okay, you can come surf with me. And then she was into you after that?
Night number one, I was a drunk military idiot, so
Right, right,
I don't have
right.
so much of a leg to stand on. But the fact that I came back the second night and then went surfing with her, got some tacos. Her mom was appalled that her first date was in a bikini eating tacos. She's like,
Of
no way
course.
in a bikini and you're eating tacos. She's like, yeah,
Of course. So then you had, and how much longer did you have there to
about
when
3
you
weeks.
had, so that did you hang out like the whole rest of the time?
Yeah.
Cute. Oh, so then you left. Was it sad when you left?
No, because we had already made plans for her to come out to Korea. And so we knew it was going to be a couple of weeks. I still had some travel that I needed to finish.
Mm-hmm.
She came out to Korea for about 3 weeks. Loved
Mm-hmm.
it. Had a great time with my Korean roommate, Heidi.
Mm-hmm.
Two of them are still great friends. I think
And
they're
Heidi lives here now, right? In the
in
U.S.
Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah. And you
Married.
guys are still like kind of close, right?
Sorry, no. So she lives in Rhode Island. Her
Okay.
family. She has some family that lives in Colorado.
Didn't she just get married?
She got married a while ago. She just had a kid recently.
Oh, okay. Because I thought I remember you talking about going to visit her,
Yeah,
right?
and we
Yeah.
visited her when we were out in New York. Drove drove the van out to New York and then up to Rhode Island to see her at Newport.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So Kristen then comes out 3 weeks, and then was it during that 3 weeks you proposed to her?
No, that'd be way too romantic. We had a FaceTime conversation when she went back to Hawaii,
What?
and
You did it over FaceTime?
it wasn't even like I
Oh
proposed.
my
We just started
God.
talking about, should we get married? And by the end of the phone call, we're like, so are we getting married?
Oh my gosh. This
And
is
then
hilarious.
that was beginning of November. I think that was November 1st, and we got married December 31st. So
What was the indication? What was it? Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're gonna be the one that I married," but what was it about her that you're like, "I'm gonna marry her," and you actually like went through with it?
it'll be weird to say you're gonna get married and not go through with it.
Well, I feel like, I mean, I've had people be like, "Yeah, you're gonna be the one that I marry," and that didn't happen.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think we're just both people that are very comfortable making decisions and sticking with them. We don't
mhm.
once we have our mind made up, we're gonna go through that, and we're very strong-headed people that no one, including her mom, flying out there with a handwritten page of reasons she shouldn't get married is going to turn
Oh,
her.
is that what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Her mom did that?
Well,
Had she had met you
no, I met them on Christmas Day before the wedding.
in Hawaii, right? You guys
Well,
got married in Hawaii?
yeah,
So you met the mom the day before the wedding for
six
her
days before
parents.
the wedding.
So you didn't ask her father for her hand in marriage.
I think we eventually called and I spoke to them, but I think that was after uh, Christian's mom flew out there with a handwritten notepad of reasons she's going to get married. And when Kristen answered every one of them and was still set on getting married, she's like, "All right, let's go pick out a wedding dress."
Aw. So you were doing FaceTime in November. You're like, okay, we're gonna get married, and then in December you flew back out to Hawaii
Yeah,
just to get married, or like were you on a trip for the
no,
military there?
I mean, I took a week or so to do it. I mean, it's over Christmas and New Year's. Just
Okay.
there's a lot of work going on.
Okay, so you're like, I got this time off. Let's get married.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was
So
fun.
romantic.
I got like 36 hours of Christmas because I was in Korea, which is west of the international date line.
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii is just east of it.
Uh-huh.
So I had all Christmas Day in Korea. I think my flight was at 7 p.m. And then when I crossed international date line, I
You're
arrived in Hawaii at 8 a.m. So I had a whole nother day of Christmas.
I love that. Twice. Christmas twice. That's genius.
One year.
So you guys got married. Was it a small wedding?
We thought it was actually going to be a lot smaller because I was living in Korea, Kristen's in Hawaii, my family's in California, her family's on the East Coast. So there was no convenient spot for us to get married where everyone's going to be able to join.
Yeah.
We just said, all right, we're going to do it in Hawaii and we're going to do it over New Year's and we'll see who can make it out there. So on 2 months' notice over a holiday, we thought people just weren't going to be that many people outside of the ones that were already in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
But we had 50 people show up.
Oh, wow. And then everyone's meeting for the first time at that.
My parents met her parents. I met her parents. She
Uh-huh.
met my parents.
Did they all like each other?
Yeah. Yeah, they're good friends now.
And your parents, her parents obviously like accepted you after the note once they
Mhm.
got to know you.
They love me now.
Yeah, that's
Not
so
like me at first,
funny.
but
They
they
didn't like you at first?
well, I mean, before they met me, I was some random military guy who
Yeah,
married to their daughter after 2 months, uh, and they don't know anything about me.
right,
We're thrilled. We're not thrilled.
right.
And I think Kristen told her mom. It was right before Kristen's mom's birthday. Kristen's mom even said she ruined her birthday that year.
It's funny. She ruined her birthday. That's like a heavy burden. But so then you guys are married and then you go back to Korea and she stays in Hawaii. So and at that point you've literally only been with each other physically for 6 weeks, right?
7
Because
weeks after the wedding, but yeah.
right, because there was three, and then that week.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like that's crazy. So then she goes back to Korea with you? Like, does she leave
No,
Hawaii at that point, right?
no, she was still finishing up her school and her nursing stuff. She didn't come out to Korea until September, but we did
Oh,
trips back and
wow.
forth.
That's
So
like 8 months, 9 months.
yeah, so she
Oh,
came
wow.
out in February for the Olympics.
Uh
They
huh.
were out in Korea. I went out there probably in April or something like that, and then uh, I went out again in July because she was leaving Hawaii. She was gonna go back to New York. She'd been doing lifeguarding out in Long Island for about the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was her regular routine. She would leave Hawaii during the summer and
Mm.
go back to New York to do lifeguarding. So she was leaving Hawaii. I helped her pack up. We did a trip out to Kauai and stuff. And then in August, I think, I went out to New York to visit with her and her family. And then she came out to Korea the end of September, I believe.
For good,
For good, yeah.
or
She stayed
to
out
like
there.
the rest of your duration that you were
She
there.
stayed out there until I came back to San Diego in March.
Oh, cool. And I know like living in Korea was a really good experience. But I actually want to go back. Did you have cold feet like at the time of like the wedding? Were you nervous or you're like, yeah, let's do this?
No, she was
Did
good.
she have cold feet?
I don't know. Kristen, did you have cold feet? I don't think so.
So then she and I know like living in Korea was a lot of fun for you guys. Did you like how was it now like living together after being because you obviously like in a I don't even want to say normal relationship, but usually how it goes is like you date, you're like in the same city, and then you're like, let's maybe live together. Okay, let's get married, or let's get married, and then you live together. Was it like hard, like cohabitating together,
No.
and like trying to learn each other's ways because you're both pretty strong headed. Like, was there any riffs?
No, because I mean, it's also
You're in
everything's so
another
good at that
country
point.
too.
Yeah, we're in another country that she's never been to in terms of like long term. She'd
Mhm.
visited a couple times at that point. Um, but she's living in another country. There's tons of new people, fun, exciting things. We're finally living together
You
for the.
don't know you don't speak the language.
I could read the alphabet, and a lot of the times, if you can read it, you can figure out some of the
Oh,
stuff. But
really?
yeah, I mean, they all speak English over there
Mm-hmm.
to some level.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in their school system, they learn English.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Some
okay.
are some are more competent than others, and some of them are
Mm-hmm.
more comfortable than others.
Mm-hmm.
But you can usually get by with some level of English and pointing at pictures and signing things out and stuff. You can get by pretty
How
well
long were you living in Korea at that point?
when she finally moved out there.
Yeah, like so how long were you stationed there, I
I was there
guess?
for 2 years total. When
Oh,
she got
wow,
out there, I've
okay.
been there for about a year and a half.
Okay. And so then after you left Korea, is that when you got out of the military?
I had one more year.
Okay, and then you came back to Encinitas or to California?
I moved back to Encinitas. I did one more year in Coronado.
Hmm.
Well, I
Was
was
that
working.
by choice or like like they allowed you to do that, like
Mhm.
knowing you were going to get out,
Yeah,
or okay. And
yeah.
then how was that?
Back here so that I'd get back to San Diego where I own the house,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd be a job that I can do while planning my exit. Start looking for jobs, start doing whatever I need to do to make it a streamlined exit instead of finding myself one day no longer in the military with a paycheck and wondering what I'm going to do next.
Mm-hmm. What was that decision like too? Like what had you want to get out of the military at that time?
I was at the halfway point in my career, just over, and that's a decision point a lot of people make. Do you
Mm-hmm.
do another 10ish
Life.
years
Mm-hmm.
to get the pension?
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at I'd done a lot of the stuff I'd wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have been dying down, so there wasn't that defined purpose of what I was doing in the military anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at it as a good transition point in my life to appreciate what I'd done, but find something new to find meaning.
And plus, you're married now, right? Because if you stayed in, you'd get deployed and you'd be living that
And
life,
we can get
right?
moved around. We can get moved to the East Coast or other
Mm-hmm.
spots. So I didn't want to get moved anymore. Christian didn't want to get moved. And as I said, I didn't see much more opportunity to do stuff that I wanted to do. You can't be a SEAL forever. At some point, you have to get out. So I'd rather have it more on my terms
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
be
cool.
able to bridge it into a second successful career, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to do now.
Mm-hmm. And then, so then also she had to come back to California and kind of get acquainted and like start a new lifestyle here in California too, right?
As you can see, she's really struggling in this new
Yeah,
lifestyle.
so hard, so hard.
Up here in Encinitas.
Aw. So what just like quickly, what are some other like you had the deployment in Korea that then took you to Hawaii? Where are some other places? Did you have other deployments?
Mm-hmm. I went to Afghanistan once. I was in a couple other countries in the Middle East, UAE, Yemen, not Yemen, Oman. I served for a year in Virginia, 2 years out in Korea. In Korea, I traveled around to Japan, Vietnam, and a few other areas. Saipan's fun.
Did you have like sketchy like deployments or were you like is
No,
it more
I wouldn't say that I was you know, in situations that were life threatening.
mm-hmm.
What I was expected to be getting into, which it is what it is. Some people get lucky or unlucky depending on how you want to look at it with the
Mm-hmm.
combat they have. But you can only chase the dragon so much. So much of what you get into is luck of the draw.
Right. Well, I'm assuming you wanted different or like you wanted to be put in those situations where probably we're looking at like thank God that you didn't get put in those situations. Which I'm sure it like can be like a struggle, right? Because that's why
Mm-hmm.
you go in, but yeah, like um yeah, well, I thank you for your service because I know like even what you're doing is a huge contribution for that. So thank you.
I enjoyed the hell out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a burden for me, but I understand that it takes a certain type of person to get in that type of career field. I enjoy doing it,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah, because
it
you're
was
you're
fun to do.
a sick individual, but I
Yeah,
get it.
probably gonna sit in the ice bath for 10 minutes.
I know exactly. Like you go in and you're like, yeah, this is so lovely, and then you stick your head under, and I like can't breathe watching you do it because I'm like hyperventilating that it's so
Good for the
cold.
hair.
And I always try to compete with you, which is kind of not a good thing to do.
So does Kristen, which
I
makes it
know.
entertaining.
I know it's not because I think the most I've gotten up to is 6 minutes, which I've declined since the winter comes around, and
Oh yeah,
I
there's no
I do
point doing
I'm
that in the
lucky if
winter.
I can get 2 minutes in there, but yeah. I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been so fun, and I had you on my radar from when I wanted to start the podcast. So thank you so much. I love you and Kristen, so thank you. And
Yeah,
um,
you have me on.
Yeah, it's been fun.